surrounding the potential for peace talks between Ukraine and Russia, noting that primary goal at the moment is to bring Russian President Putin to negotiation table. Rubio further emphasized that any security guarantees for Ukraine are contingent upon the establishment of peace. So that's the latest that we are seeing at this point of time. We have with us my colleague Brian Thomas on the telecast. Brian, what are the details that are coming in terms of this statement by Marco Rubio?
Well, definitely, Dia. Now U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has weighed in on the ongoing discussions regarding potential peace talks between both Ukraine and Russia, emphasizing that the immediate priority is bringing Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table. Even very importantly, it has also been said, and Rubio has also underscored that any security guarantees for Ukraine depend on the establishment of peace, and explained that such assurances would only hold significance if a peace treatment or agreement is in place. And also, very importantly, he also further elaborated that the Ukrainians were made aware of this repeatedly, and their strategy is to bring Putin to the negotiating table. And the key question now is whether, US or they can achieve it, because that's their goal. And referring to Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's action during the Oval Office meeting with President Donald Trump, Rubio remarked that they did not do anything to disrupt the process, but unfortunately Zelensky took every opportunity perspective on various issues, and even confronted JD Vance also when the vice president emphasized that the diplomacy is the goal. Zelensky immediately challenged him, and questioned if that is the kind of diplomacy they are looking for. And also, very importantly, acknowledging the complexities of the situation, also Rubio noted that they have all recognized that Putin won't be easy in negotiating or be a very easy negotiator, but they have to initiate the process to determine whether peace is even feasible as well at that point of time. Yes.
All right, Brian, stay with us. We also have with us Sanjeev Srivastava, international affairs expert, joining us on the telecast. Sanjeev Srivastava, good morning to you. And now we're seeing that there was a huge fallout between Donald Trump and Zelensky at the Oval Office meeting where we saw that there was a fiery exchange, a very heated exchange that took place, which also had a huge effect on the minerals deals as well. But the focus that right now is on the Russia-Ukraine war. We have seen that Marco Rubio, several European leaders, and they have held emergency meeting, as well as Marco Rubio has said that the main focus is to bring Russian president on board on the negotiation table. So what's your take on that?
Well, Ria, first of all, a very good morning to you. Good morning to all the viewers. This is a very important aspect, that how Russian President Putin and the Russian establishment comes to the negotiating table. And unless until that happens, any progress with regard to a peace deal will not be possible. So I think the first point is that what Marco Rubio is saying, that to bring Russian President Vladimir Putin on negotiating table, you'll have to have a ceasefire. And the first ceasefire is required. And once this constructive, positive atmospheric is created, then only any kind of negotiations will proceed. And that is the whole point, what President Donald Trump was also trying to tell to President Zelensky when they met at the Oval Office. And President Trump wanted President Zelensky to accept proposal for a ceasefire deal, on which President Zelensky was resisting hard that Russia is the aggressor, Putin is a terrorist, and all sorts of very negative sentiments President Zelensky was expressing against Putin. And I think in such kind of a scenario, it was not possible for President Trump and entire Trump administration to go ahead with any kind of a ceasefire deal. So I think the ceasefire is a precondition for any kind of a peace deal which might happen between Russia and Ukraine. And that is what precisely the Trump administration is asking for. Obviously, Trump administration knows that this process will be tough. Our entire negotiations process will not be easy at all. And security guarantees certainly will have to be given from Russian side that once the deal is done, they will not breach it and they will not pose any kind of a threat to Ukraine's security and security of the European nations. So all those questions will have to be negotiated. But for any negotiation to begin, a ceasefire is required, a peace is required. That is what Marco Rubio is saying. And unless until a ceasefire proposal is accepted by Ukraine and Europe, I think President Putin and Russian establishment will hesitate not to come to the negotiating table. So I think the first priority for the U.S. administration, the Trump administration, is to convince President Zelensky and European nations to have a ceasefire deal. So that
all right, Sanjeev Srivastava, stay with us. We have more developments coming in. Ukrainian President Zelensky was warmly greeted by UK Prime Minister Starmer in London. It's in contrast to the heated meeting that took place with President Donald Trump that left relations with the US in question. Starmer is hosting a group of European leaders to discuss how to provide more support for the country. Now, 3 years since it was invaded by Russia, and he now says Britain, France and Ukraine have agreed to work on a ceasefire plan to present to the US. Over the weekend, leaders from over a dozen countries got together to discuss a roadmap to peace and security for Ukraine as the country faces its third year of war with Russia. The emergency summit was also aimed at working to preserve Ukraine's relationship with the US and America's involvement in the war overseas. Sanjeev Srivastava, in terms of this Russia-Ukraine war, we have seen now that the West is at crossroads, and now European leaders also want to take in part in this negotiation, and this can be seen with this emergency meeting that has taken place. And what do you think this means for the Russia-Ukraine war and the roadmap to peace and security?
Well, Ria, I think it's a very significant meeting which happened in Europe. And I think several European countries participated in it, and they have assured President Zelensky for their full support in wherever the Ukraine is in at this point of time. And Ukraine needs that kind of a support from European nations. Obviously, they wanted such support is required from America too. But at this point of time, because of this aspect, because of the difference of opinion between US and Ukraine, Europe is the only side which is standing very firm on the side of Ukraine and with President Zelensky. So I think that is very much required, and to assure that, I think they had this meeting. They had a very good, constructive meeting with President Zelensky, and President Zelensky also met King Charles of Britain. So I think all those atmospherics are very good. But having said that, let me say that European nations' support to Ukraine is not only about President Zelensky in Ukraine, but it is about their own security too. Because if any peace deal is done with Russia in such a way that Russia have a sense that they have become a dominating force and they have won this war, then I think it will not be good for the future of European security too. So I think Europe is very much concerned about the over-ambitious approach of President Putin, which he might have if any weak peace deal is done, and later on he will become emboldened to attack on any other European countries like Moldova, Georgia, and he has been threatening. And he has President Putin has an ambition to
All right,
divide.
Sanjeev Srivastava, unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us on the telecast. Meanwhile, viewers, let's in fact listen into some reaction coming in from American citizens over Oval Office meeting that took place.
In war, you don't really win. Like when we had the Afghanistan withdrawal, it wasn't the best withdrawal, right? So war is never a good option for any side, and people always die. And Donald Trump just said, I want to stop the killing. And moving forward, I believe what Trump said. Trump told Zelensky, you don't have any cards to play with right now. And in all honesty, a ceasefire would have been a good idea. Now, a lot of Ukrainians, are going to say that Russia kept breaking ceasefires and things, but that wasn't under the Trump administration. I feel that Trump does better deals,
Ukraine has been a loyal ally. Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons because we basically pressured them to. That made them vulnerable to an evil enemy who attacked them without provocation, and we have stood by them until recently. Our behavior since the new administration came in has been disgraceful, and I need to do everything I personally can to demonstrate and try to change that behavior.
Ukrainian and American friends, thank you so much for your support, to basically stand with Ukraine and show the entire world, especially after everything which happened in the Oval Office a day before, that actually most of the Americans support Ukraine. We all know that, and we want that support to continue. We want to try to find a way to negotiate and to have the support of United States, of Europe, to help us to finish this war and have just and lasting peace with security guarantees for Ukraine. Otherwise, Russia will rearm and reinvade again, and all our efforts to make this peace negotiations with Russia, it all would be in vain.
Actually, I agree with Trump because Ukrainians like to come and bully people. And we've been bullied too much by them. They use fear of Putin to try to get us to be sympathetic to them. But look at all these able bodies out here protesting. How come they're not over in Ukraine? We got Americans that are losing their benefits, losing jobs, but we're paying pensions in Ukraine. We're paying Social Security in Ukraine. Ukrainians in America living better than America.